Hello, my friends, how are you? I hope you are doing great. Welcome to another YouTube video. So, my friends, typically we start our YouTube video by sharing with my teacher what I have extracted from today's English session. And today, there is no expectations. I don't know, my friends, either I have used here this expression correctly. Today, it is not an expectation to me that today we're gonna also follow the same structure. So my friends, I have extracted a lot, so many nuggets of wisdom from today's reading session. And my friends, I would like to tell you or to share with you that the last day I have purchased the physical book that I'm currently reading because my friends, before I purchase a book because they are very expensive in my country, I read it in my tablet because I read it in my tablet as a PDF version because as you know, my friends, PDF version it is for free, and if I found the book very interesting and it's worth purchasing the physical book, I do that. And my friends, Essentialism it is really a great book. For that reason, I have purchased the physical version. So now, my friends, I'm going to share with my teacher what I have extracted from today's English session, and they will provide me with some thought-provoking questions that will enable me to reflect much more deeply on what I have extracted. So let's do that, my friends. Hello, teacher. How are you? I
Hey
hope
there,
you are
Ismail.
doing great. So, teacher, I'm going to share with you what I've extracted from my today's reading session. And teacher, I hope that what I'm going to share with you gonna spark a conversation and a speaking practice. What I mean is that I would like to provide me with some thought-provoking question or posing debate or whatever activity you choose that will enable me to practice speaking based on what I have extracted from the book.
Absolutely, Ismail. I'm doing well and I'm excited to dive into whatever you've extracted from your reading today. Once you share your thoughts, I'll definitely toss in a thought provoking question or maybe even a little debate prompt to keep things lively. Just let me know what you've got.
Thank you very much, teacher. I really appreciate your help. So, teacher, the first thing that I have extracted from today's reading session from the book Essentialism, which is something I have extracted the importance of editing. Teacher, the author had started this chapter by emphasizing that. I don't know what we call the event in where the best filmmakers get awarded. So please, teacher, can you tell me what do we call this event?
Of course, that big event where the best filmmakers and actors get awards is called the Oscars or the Academy Awards. It's basically the big stage for celebrating excellence in
Yeah,
filmmaking.
thank you very much, teacher. I think the author had called it as the Academy Award, not Oscar. So, teacher, people at the night of this Academy Award. I don't know, teacher, either have used here at the night of this Academy Awards, people they really stay awake well past their bedtime because they are really eager and enthusiastic to know who gonna win this title or this award. And my question for you, teacher, which is whether award and title can be used interchangeably here in that context. So teacher, once the person gets or receive this award, people they just go into their kitchen to fill their bowl with popcorn, or they are no longer interested on that event, because I think once the best filmmaker awarded, it is followed this event. They give another award to the best editor, but what I have understand is that people they are not usually interested by editors, while they don't know that the best film and the editors are correlated. I don't know, teacher, either whether I have used here the word correlated correctly, but I think it means something that goes hand in hand or it is linked to each other. For example, I can say that exercise they are correlated to health. To mean that if we practice exercise daily, that will contribute to better health. So teacher people they really underestimate the best editors while they don't know that editing a film it is one of the crucial things that lead him to win this award. So, teacher, I would like from you to tell me what do you think about how I have counted or narrated this you know this tendency. Then, teacher, I'm going to tell you how we can how also editing our life is as similar as editing a film and or editing a book.
Absolutely, Ismail. You've done a great job summarizing that idea, and I'll definitely jump in with some feedback and a thought provoking question. So, first, yes, award and title can often be used interchangeably in that context. It's perfectly fine to say someone won an award or a title, especially when we're talking about something like the Academy Awards. Now, on your usage, I think you did a nice job with correlated. You've used it correctly. It does mean two things that are connected or go hand in hand. And your example about exercise and health is spot on. In terms of your narration, you're doing well, you're structuring your thoughts clearly, and I can follow your reasoning easily. You might want to watch out for a couple of small things. You said either a few times where you could simplify it, but overall, you're doing great. Now, here's a thought provoking question for you. Since you mentioned that editing is often underrated but crucial, how do you think the concept of editing can apply to personal life choices? In other words, if we think of our life as a film, what kind of editing do you think we can do to make our own story more focused and meaningful? Let me
But
know what
teacher, before we dive into the importance of editing our life, let me first tell you what is editing and why it is crucial to our life. Teacher, I have started to gradually incorporate the five whys into my response because occasionally, teacher, I feel really stuck in expressing myself. But once I try to leverage and harness the power of the five why, then I can start practicing speaking. So, teacher, if I really wanted to practice the five why into your question, and tell me, teacher, the reviews here practice the five why into your question correctly. I can say, teacher, that first, what is editing? Editing, teacher, it is removing the things that are not really crucial or vital for a film or for a story that just, annoy the reader or the viewer of the movie. And tell me, teacher, either should have used the viewer or the watcher, which one really fitting much more correctly. Another thing, teacher, which is why we need to edit our life or a movie because teacher, if we are not keep editing our life, it will be likely cluttered or full of things that are not congruent or aligned with our goals. So now, teacher, I have now answered the what, the why, and I think now I'm going to answer the who. So the people who must really use editing in their life are the people who found themselves stretched too thin, doing things that are not really aligned with their goals. So if they really take editing seriously, they will start to remove or to discard. I don't know, teacher, their views here discard correctly all the things that are not vital for their for achieving their goals. So now, teacher, I have answered the what, why, who, and the fourth why, what, who, why. I think, teacher, I've already answered why. So two remains. I have lost track of them. Tell me their views here. Lost track of them to me, and I have really forgot about them.
you're doing really well, Ishal, and I can see you're thoughtfully applying the five whys technique to your explanation. Let me give you some feedback and address your questions along the way. First, you've definitely used discard correctly here. It means to get rid of things that aren't needed, so that fits perfectly with what you're describing. And yes, you've used the five whys process in a very logical way. You've asked what editing is, why we need it, who should do it, and you're on track to explore the rest. Just a quick note on a couple of little grammar tweaks. When you say viewer or watcher, either word is fine, but viewer is probably the most common term for someone watching a film. And your use of start with them or start with that is totally clear. Now, to help you finish off your five whys, you might consider the when or the how. For example, you could ask, when should we edit our lives? And the answer might be whenever we feel overwhelmed or out of alignment. Or you could explore how to edit, like choosing which commitments to keep and which distractions to let go. So we're definitely on the right track. Let me know how you'd like to continue.
Yeah, teacher, I have actually forget about the when and the how. So when, teacher, I think we should use this technique of editing our life when we feel overwhelmed or when we feel that we are not really making any progress toward the things that we would like to achieve in our life. Because usually, like when people feel overwhelmed, burned out, or feel that they are uh, stretched too thin and diffusing their energy into numerous things than when they should really apply editing into their life. So, teacher, now I have answered the when. So, what is the one that is left that I haven't answered? I have really forget about it. And you know, teacher, I would like for you to tell me briefly the importance of the five whys and how did they gonna really enable me to practice speaking? Because the majority of the time, I think what really frustrate language learners is they don't know how to structure their speeches.
Absolutely, Ismail, and you're doing a fantastic job putting all these pieces together. You've actually nailed the when really well. Using editing in life when you feel overwhelmed or spread too thin is a perfect example. That makes complete sense. So the last piece you might consider is the how. How do we actually do that editing? And that could be things like setting priorities, saying no to non-essential commitments, or regularly reviewing your goals. Now, about the importance of the five whys. This technique is super helpful for structuring your speech because it gives you a natural framework. When you apply the five whys, you're essentially guiding yourself through a deeper exploration of a topic. It helps you dig into not just what something is, but why it matters, who it impacts, when to use it, and how to apply it. And that naturally makes your speech more organized and confident. For language learners, having a structure like this can be really reassuring. It means you don't have to worry as much about running out of things to say because you're just following a logical path. So keep practicing it and you'll find it really boosts your speaking fluency and clarity.
Thank you very much, teacher. So now let's move into another chapter that I found much more interesting and insightful than the one that we have just tackled. I'm not claiming, teacher, that editing our life it is not useful, but I think the author, unfortunately, he had not like elaborated or explained the the purpose of editing further and how we can apply it into our lives. So now, teacher, let's move into the with the second chapter that I have tackled today, which is limit. So, teacher, the author had started this chapter by sharing with us a story of a manager who really doesn't care about his employees, so he keep providing them with tasks. And you know, teacher, I forget the name of this person. Uh, which let's call it John. Let's call it John. So teacher John, he was preparing for his wedding, but and his manager he had provided him with a task related to board meeting. I don't know, teacher, what is a board meeting, so please I would like from you to provide me with its meaning. So I provided him with the task of organizing a board meeting prayer, 5 weeks prayer his wedding. The word prayer, teacher, I have extracted it from my today's reading session, which means before. So 5 weeks prior to his wedding. So this person, he worked very hard and he worked around the clock. I have used here, teacher, this idiomatic expression, which is around the clock, which means he had been working all throughout the day to finish this task before his wedding, so he can have some blank space in his calendar to prepare for his wedding perfectly and to have everything set to have everything in his wedding perfectly tied. I don't know, teacher, the reviews here perfectly tied correctly. But you know, teacher, as I have told you, this manager he really doesn't care about his employees or he had no concern over his employees. When he finished his task early than the deadline, uh, instead of like his manager, instead of providing him with endorsement, gratitude, and provide him with entitlement. I don't know, teacher, the reviews here in the word entitlement correctly, and provide him with compliments. He had bombarded him with some new tasks. But you know, this person. But I think, but you know, teacher, this person he responded with no because he was very overwhelmed and burdened out of all the requests that he get from his manager that had been hijacked all his time. So when he answered no, some other team members they become also encouraged to start answering no to the request of the managers, and the managers he started tackling this task by himself. And then when he realized that while he was tackling this task, he became he started fuming and become frustrated. And then when he really started to put his shoes, he himself in the shoes of his employees, and he started empathizing with him. And he I think he set a meeting with them. I don't know to trader I've used here setting a meeting with them in where they have exchanged or brainstormed some ideas that will enable them to strike a balance between their professional life and their work.
Absolutely, Ismail. You've woven that story together very clearly, and I can follow your narration really well. Let me give you some quick feedback on a couple of points, and then we can dive into the insights. First off, you've used around the clock perfectly. It absolutely means working all day and night, so that idiom is spot on. You also use perfectly timed correctly. It's a nice way to say he wanted everything to be in order before the wedding. And setting a meeting is also perfectly natural. In terms of the word entitlement, usually entitlement means someone feels they deserve something automatically. So in this case, you might just say you expected the manager to give him some praise or recognition rather than entitlement. But that's a minor tweak. Let's dive into the insight. It sounds like the chapter is really about empathy and boundaries, recognizing when to say no and how that can actually help a team. The manager learned that he had to step into his employees' shoes to understand them better, and that's a powerful lesson. So here's a quick question for you to keep practicing. How do you think setting boundaries and saying no can help improve not just your work life, but also your personal life? Feel free to share your thoughts.
You know, teacher, the teacher provide us with a metaphor and analogy that really drive this home, or emphasize the importance of setting boundaries. And he mentioned that let's imagine, not let's imagine, but this has actually happened in America. So you know, kids they were playing in. They were playing in a playground that didn't had fences, so they were being watched by just by their parents who seated very narrow boundaries on them. I don't know teacher either have used here seated very narrow boundaries on them, but you know teacher after they have decided that they gonna put or set fences around the playground. And when they have set these boundaries or these fences that had really increases the scope of this playground. I think teacher, I haven't used increased the scope of this playground correctly. I should have said it had expanded the playground in terms of size, and now the kids they have much more space to play on it. So I can say teacher that by setting boundaries in this case, which are fences, children they are no longer controlled by their parents who are setting limits on where they must play, and now they can play wherever they want. So what do you think, teacher, about this analogy that really emphasizes the importance of setting boundaries and how they really enable us to dedicate much more of our time to things that are much more essential, and things that enable us to make our higher contributions?
I think that's a fantastic analogy, Ismail. You're absolutely right. The using the metaphor of the playground and fences really drives the point home. And you did a great job explaining it. So just a couple of tiny tweaks. You could say the fences expanded the playground or gave the children more room to play freely. And when you mentioned the parents set very narrow boundaries, that was perfectly fine. It made perfect sense. Overall, the whole analogy emphasizes that boundaries aren't there to limit us. Instead, they give us a clearer space to operate in. And just like those kids ended up with more freedom inside the fence, we often have more freedom when we set clear boundaries in our own lives. That lets us focus on what truly matters and make our highest contributions, just like you said. So I think you've really captured the essence of the chapter. Great job.
Thank you very much, teacher. I appreciate your help. You know, teacher, the author here provided us with another metaphor analogy. Teacher, I found it very hard to. I found that metaphor or analogy they use it interchangeably, but I think they don't have the same meaning.
You're very welcome, Ismail. And you're right, metaphor and analogy are often used interchangeably in casual conversation, but they do have slightly different nuances. A metaphor is more like saying one thing is another thing, to draw a direct comparison. For example, life is a journey is a metaphor. An analogy is more about explaining something by comparing it to something else that is similar in some way. So when the author compares setting boundaries in life to putting a fence around a playground, that's an analogy. It's using one idea to explain another. So you can think of it this way. Metaphors often say this is that, while analogies say this is like that. But don't worry too much about mixing them up. People do it all the time, and your explanation was perfectly clear. Keep
Thank you
going.
very much. So now teacher, I'll provide you with another analogy. With another analogy, I think analogy it fits here much more better because you told me analogy, which is a story that straighten our understanding of a concept. While a metaphor, it is, as you have mentioned, it is like an apple a day keeps the doctor away. So this is a metaphor. Tell me, teacher, either I have now a good grasp of the of the difference between these two things.
You're very welcome as well. And yes, you've absolutely got it now. An analogy is all about that kind of storytelling comparison that helps make a concept clearer, and a metaphor is more of a direct symbolic phrase. So you're using them both just right, and it sounds like you have a solid understanding of the difference now. Keep up the great work, and if you ever want to explore more analogies or metaphors, just let me know.
Thank you very much, teacher. I really appreciate your help. So this analogy it consists of a person which is the author of a great book. I have forget its name. And you know, teacher, two parents they have addressed this person because this person is known of solving problems of other people. So when they have approached him, they told him that they are facing some problems with with their son. And you know, this person he was really curious, or he wondered why their son he didn't came with them to this meeting. And he told him that when they have asked their son to come with them, he responded that he has no problem. And you know, teacher, the answer that this person had provided to the parents, it really, I can say it really depict or picture what a lot of parents are facing. I don't know, teacher, either I have used here depict or picture correctly to mean it illustrates what a lot of parents are facing. So he told him that it is very fair that their children has no that their son has no problem because they are doing all his house chores. I don't know, teacher, either I've used here house chores correctly. They are cleaning his room. They're all doing all these things. For that reason, he does feel that he doesn't have no problem because all his problem he had been taken because his parents they are like solving all his problem. And to emphasize what is happening with him further, he told him, let's imagine that your neighbor he's not taking care of his lawn. And you know, because when you start the sprinkle system, your the water of the sprinkle might fall on his lawn and they might become green, while your lawn they are not while you're alone, it is not really that great. So he instructed them, or he suggests that they must really set some fences that will enable them to stop solving his problem. Because, you know, when we are solving the problem of others, our intentions backfire or have the opposite effect because we are making this person much more lazier. We are not helping him uh, to harness his problem solving skills, and rather we are just worsening his situation. So what do you think, teacher, about my understanding of that concept?
I think you've understood that concept really well, Ismail. You've done a great job of explaining how that analogy works. And yes, in this case, analogy is the perfect word because it's really that story that illustrates the point. The idea is that by solving someone's problems for them all the time, you're not actually helping them grow. You're just making them more dependent and less able to handle things on their own. So setting boundaries is actually a way to empower them. And you use words like depict or illustrate perfectly to mean that you're painting a picture of what's going on. That's exactly right. And house chores is also correct for describing those everyday tasks. So everything you said is spot on. In short, I think you've captured the lesson really well. You've explained that concept of why it's important not to overhelp others to the point where they can't solve their own issues. Really nicely done.
Thank you very much, teacher. I really appreciate your help and your polishment of what I share with you. Thank you very much, teacher. So, teacher, please, I would like for me just to repeat what you have just said because I wasn't listening to you attentively.
Of course, Ismail, no problem at all. So, just to sum it up again for you, you explain the analogy really well. The idea is that when parents solve all their child's problems, it can actually make the child more dependent. So, the author used an analogy about a neighbor's lawn to show that if you keep watering someone else's lawn, they never learn to care for it themselves. And that's exactly what you described. You use words that depict and illustrate perfectly, and everything you said was right on point. So, in short, you've got a great grasp of that concept. If you have any other questions or need me to repeat anything else, just let me know.
Thank you very much, teacher. I really appreciate your help. So now, teacher, we can dive into thought-provoking question session. Or, teacher, I would like for you to ask me something that will keep me on my toes and enable me to practice speaking naturally. So let's do that. Well, I would like for me to keep it related to what I have shared with you or that topic.
Absolutely, let's do that. I'd be happy to throw you a thought provoking question related to everything you've shared. So here it is. Based on the idea of setting boundaries and letting people solve their own problems, how do you think this applies in a work or team setting, especially if you were in a leadership role? How would you encourage your team members to become more independent problem solvers without feeling like you're just leaving them on their own? Feel free to jump in and share your thoughts.
Please, teacher, can you repeat this real life scenario because I haven't got it very well.
Of course. Here it is again. Imagine you're in a leadership role at work and you want your team members to become more independent problem solvers. How would you encourage them to solve their own challenges without feeling like you're just leaving them alone or not supporting them? In other words,
Okay,
how would you apply the idea of setting boundaries and fostering independence in a team setting?
okay, so
Let me
sure, this is really a great real life scenario that will enable me to cultivate my leadership skills. And tell me their views here. The word cultivate correctly to mean to build or to harness or to yeah. Tell me teacher their views here. The word cultivate correctly.
Absolutely, Ismail. You use cultivate perfectly. It's exactly the right word to mean developing or nurturing a skill like leadership. So you're spot on there. And I'm glad you found the scenario helpful. It's a great way to practice thinking about how you'd guide a team and build their independence. So feel free to dive in whenever you're ready and share your thought on how you'd approach it.
So, okay, teacher, here is how I will, here is the suggestion or the piece of advice that I will provide to my employees in order to set boundaries in their workflow. I don't know, teacher, they have used your workflow correctly, so let me know. I will tell him that if they keep like getting if they keep getting requests from their teammates to solve their problems, I will tell them to answer candidly and honestly without being embarrassed that they have some other things that they are tackling and they don't have a spare time to tackle their problem, so they could tell them to go and read some documentation or just to ask the AI about their problem, and it can help them to solve it much more straightforwardly. And I think this answer it will enable them to just not keep falling onto this trap of solving the problem of others. And tell me, teacher, their views you're falling onto this trap correctly.
Absolutely, Ismail. That sounds like a really practical approach. And you've used all those terms correctly. Workflow is spot on for describing how they manage their tasks. And falling into this trap is a perfect way to say getting caught in a pattern of always solving others' problems. So your advice is clear and well put, encouraging your team to be honest about their workload and to direct their colleagues to resources like documentation or AI tools is a great way to help them set boundaries. It gives them a polite and constructive way to say no, and also helps their teammates become more self-reliant. So you're definitely cultivating that leadership mindset. Well done.
Okay, so now, my friends, we have just finished our discussion about the book. Now we're gonna dive into reviewing some Anki flashcard or to another activity that will enable us to improve our speaking. And as you know, my friends, I would like to tell you that I have committed a lot of mistakes throughout my conversation. And my friends, my teacher had corrected those mistakes, and I will try to avoid them in future discussion. Because, my friend, if you are running away from committing mistakes, I'm sure, or if you really care about the judgment judgment of, or opinion of other people on how you talk. I'm sure that this will really be like a encumbrances. I don't know either I have used the word encumbrances correctly to mean something that will sabotage or hinder your progress, but rather, my friend, you should really embrace the mistake that you're going to make along the way and see them as a stepping stone to reach a higher level. Okay, so my friends, now I have started applying or using a new technique that I have incorporated into my reading session, which consists of sharing with my teacher a screenshot of all the podcasts that I'm interested into. And then, my friends, I would like from him to choose or to pick a podcast to listen to it. And after you do that, I will listen to the podcast, share with him what I have extracted from the podcast, the word that had resonated with me and that I found interesting. And then we can have a back and forth conversation about the topic of this podcast. So, my friend, this is the first time I'm going to, to try or to give a shot into this into this strategy of practicing speaking, listening, reading at the same time or simultaneously. And my friend, learning a language is just trying numerous technique and strategies and stick to the one that we found valuable and that help us to enhance our level. So now, my friends, I'm going to take a screenshot to this. I've already took a screenshot to this episode. Now I'm going to ask teacher to provide me with a random topic to listen to it from these episodes. So let's do that. Please, teacher, I would like from you to pick or choose a random podcast from the ones that I've provided to you. I'll give it a listen, then I'll come back to you to share with you what I've extracted from the podcast, what I've understood, practice some of the vocabulary that I found interesting, and then teacher can provide me with thought-provoking question, and we can have a back and forth conversation. So let's do that, teacher, and I would like from you also to tell me what do you think about this technique. Teacher, you smile, and I love this technique. It is exactly how advanced learners become fluent, agile, and natural. You extract vocabulary and arguments, you share your understanding, you dive into thought-provoking question, real conversation. This method keeps you on your toes, forces you to think quickly, exposes you to real-life English, and helps you retain for vocabulary far better than passive learning. Listening, summarizing, speaking, debating, applying vocabulary. BBC English from the news. From this list, you screenshot English from the news in short, clear, and always includes real-world topics. English from the news. English from the news. Great vocabulary. Listen to any one episode from English from the news. Come back and share it with me what you understand, the main ideas, any vocabulary that caught your attention, your opinion about the topic. Okay, so my friends, for this English session, the author had picked or chosen the topic, which is the podcast, which is English from the news. I think here is it, my friend. English from the news. So we're gonna listen to the latest. We're gonna listen to the latest podcast, and while listening, my friends, I will try to jot down some interesting vocabulary while listening. And once I listen to the full podcast, I get back to my teacher to practice speaking based on what I have extracted. Okay, my friends, now let's resume our English session. I have just finished, my friends, given a list. I have just finished listening to this episode from English from the news. And my friend, what is really great about this podcast platform is it allows us to get the transcript of every podcast. And now, my friends, I'm going to share this transcript with my teacher so that based on it, we're gonna have a conversation, or I should have said that this transcript it will spark a great conversation between me and my teacher. So let's do that. Okay, teacher, this is the transcript of the podcast that I have just given a listen from English from the news. And now, teacher, I'm going to provide you the summary of what I have got from this podcast, and then we can dive into a back and forth conversation. Keep me on my toes, teacher, by providing me with some unpredictable, thought-provoking question related to this podcast. So let's dive into it. Perfect, Ismail, you are doing this exactly the right way. Before you give me your summary, let me step up the structures you are speaking becomes clear sharp. When you share what you understood to include of the episode vocabulary, smooth your sentence, highlight vocabulary, thought unpredictable, question bring idioms naturally in the conversation, push you to think like a native, discussing the news. You are doing it, let's practice, keep it going, go ahead, teacher is listening, share your summary. Okay, so now, teacher, I'm going to share with you a brief summary of
Hey
what I
there.
have understood from this podcast. So, teacher, the podcast it had talked about shipwreck, and a shipwreck, teacher, that had sunk in on the ocean. It's have been long time, and I think, teacher, there is some conflicts between countries about who really own the shipwreck because there is some expert who claimed or who had announced that the treasure in the shipwreck it might worth more than $20 billion, which is a very huge price. So, teacher son, based on the transcript that I have shared with you, I would like to have a back and forth conversation about this podcast.
Absolutely, Ismail. Let's dive in. First, let me give you a quick polish on your summary to make it even smoother. All right, teacher, here's a brief summary of what I gathered from the podcast. Essentially, the episode talked about a shipwreck that sank in the ocean centuries ago. There's a bit of a conflict among countries over who actually owns the wreck because experts have claimed the treasure on it might be worth more than $20 billion, which is an enormous sum. Now, based on that, I'd love to have a back and forth conversation about the podcast. Instead of that has been sunk in the ocean, it's have been a long time. A smoother way is that sank in the ocean a long time ago. Instead of there are some experts who claimed, just say some experts claimed. Also, which is a very huge price, can be refined to which is an enormous amount. Let's keep you on your toes. So, Ismail, let's jump into that conversation. First thought provoking question. If you were in the shoes of one of these countries claiming the treasure, how would you justify that it belongs to you? And feel free to use the words wrecked, legendary, or holy grail if you like to get comfortable with them in context.
Thank you very much, teacher, for providing me with the words that had been mentioned in the podcast, which is legendary, wrecked, and holy grail. So I try to weave them in my conversation to get more comfortable using these new words that I've extracted from the podcast. So I think, teacher, if I were in the shoes of these countries, like the evidence that I will provide to the other countries to claim this ship, I will tell them that. If we're gonna need or we're gonna be required to pull the ship from the ocean firstly, and we will try to look for some signs or symbols or flags and based on those flags, we're gonna know to which country the ship is belonging. And I think, teacher, like that, the treasure it will be given to the right ship. And another solution, teacher, I think that. Teacher, there is a lot of countries. There is so many countries who are claiming that this treasure is belonging to them, but I think the country who really must take this treasure, which is Colombia, because they have found the ship in their coasts. And tell me, teacher, either I have used here the word coast to mean the beach side or something like that. I'm not sure either I've used here the word coast correctly.
Absolutely, Ismail. You're doing a great job weaving those words in. Let me refine your response a bit, and then we'll dive into some thought provoking questions. So, if I was in the shoes of one of these countries, I'd say something like this. First, we should retrieve the shipwreck and look for any signs or symbols on it, like flags or markings, that could tell us which nation the legendary treasure rightfully belongs to. In other words, we'd want to find clues that point to the ship's origin. After that, we can make a fair decision about which country gets the treasure. Another angle is that Colombia, since it discovered the wreck in its own waters, might have the strongest claim. They could argue that, being in their coastal zone, the treasure is essentially part of their heritage. By the way, you used cost a little off there. I think you meant to say something like, it's on their coast or in their coastal waters. But overall, that was a great try. Thought provoking question. All right, now let's keep you on your toes. Imagine you're part of an international team negotiating this. How would you convince everyone that finding such a legendary shipwreck is like discovering a holy grail of history? And what responsibilities do we have toward preserving it for the world? Feel
Okay,
free to.
teacher. First, let me provide you the brief meaning of the Holy Grail based on what I have based on the podcast. They have mentioned that the Holy Grail it was a cup that belonged uh, to the prophet Isa. I'm not sure about the accuracy of the meaning, and they it is something that people they are searching for it because it is they believe that if you drink from this cup uh, you will be like I don't know, teacher, what we call a person who never died, like infernal or something like that. I'm not sure about the accuracy of this word, but teacher, I would like now to provide me with the real life scenario because or the back and forth or the thought-provoking question, because while sharing with you the meaning of the Holy Grail, I have really forget about it.
Absolutely, Ismail, you are on the right track. The idea of the Holy Grail in legend is indeed that it's a mythical cup linked to Jesus, known as Isa in Arabic. In stories, it's supposed to grant special powers or immortality. Yes, that's the word you were looking for, immortal. So now let's get into that real life scenario and keep that conversation flowing. Thought provoking question. Imagine you're part of a global preservation team. You're standing in a grand international meeting and you have to explain to everyone why this legendary wreck is like the holy grail of maritime history. In other words, you're arguing that it's a unique and priceless piece of human heritage that belongs to all of humanity, not just one nation. How would you
Okay,
make that?
yeah, okay. So here is, teacher, how I will try to solve this conflict between these nations. I will tell them that. I will tell them, teacher, that this ship it is really considered the holy grail of the human history, and we should not let this ship spark any conflict among nations, but rather I think we could provide the treasure that we're gonna find in this shipwreck to all the to countries equally, so they can put it into their museum, and I think like that we're gonna solve this dilemma. And tell me, teacher, if you use here the word dilemma or conundrum, and tell me the dilemma and conundrum can be used interchangeably to mean a problem that is very hard to solve them.
That's a fantastic approach, Ismail. You did a great job laying out a peaceful solution and you used the lemma correctly. A dilemma is indeed a difficult problem with no easy solution, and conundrum is a perfect synonym. So yes, they can be used interchangeably in this context. Nicely done. Little polish. You might say, this ship is truly the holy grail of maritime history, a legendary find that belongs to all humanity. Instead of letting it fuel conflict, we should share the treasure equally among nations, so each can preserve it in their museums. That way we solve this dilemma by turning it into a shared heritage, rather than a source of dispute. Final thought provoking question. Now let's add one more layer. If this shipwreck is a shared holy grail, what responsibilities do you think the global community has to preserve it for future generations? And how could we make sure everyone respects that responsibility? Let me know your thoughts.
I think, teacher, the only thing that nations they must. I will try to rephrase that so it can be much more eloquent and clear. I think for nations to preserve the treasure that they're gonna find in this shipwreck is just to place it in a museum and to make sure that it will not be stolen by thieves, because it should be it should be under a place or a museum that has a high security, and or I should have said it should be in a museum that has a high or a tight security. Tell me, teacher, the reviews here, tight security. And teacher, I think that this treasure throughout the time it will start to wear out, so they must to preserve it very well, they must apply some chemicals on it so it can remain uh, brilliant, not brilliant, teacher, but teacher, treasure and all these things, as they have remain in the water, salt in the salt water for prolonged period of time, it is inevitable or foregone conclusion that they will be harassed and they will not be in a good shape. For that reason, I think that nations they must you know how we can say that remove this harass and take care of them so they can put them so when they put them in this or when they're gonna display them in those more on those monuments they can be appealing and attractive for visitors.
Absolutely, Ismail. You made some excellent points here. Let's refine your thoughts a bit for clarity and fluency. I'd say that to preserve this treasure, nations must place it in museums with very high security, so it isn't stolen or damaged. And yes, tight security in the perfect phrase here. You used it correctly. Also, you're right that these artifacts can corrode over time. So it's important to treat them with preservation techniques, for example, applying anti-corrosion measures to keep them in good shape. That way, when they're displayed, they remain appealing and attractive to visitors from around the world. You're doing a fantastic job expressing these ideas clearly, and yet dilemma and conundrum can absolutely be used interchangeably to mean a tough problem. Now you've really nailed it. Let's keep practicing like this, and you'll get more and more comfortable with these words.
Thank you very much, teacher. I think now we can switch the gear into another activity that will allows us to practice speaking other than thought-provoking questions. So, teacher, use your creativity and provide us with another strategy that will enable me to practice speaking based on the podcast that I have just listened to it. And what do you think, teacher, about listening to a podcast in coming? You know, teacher, I've already told me its benefits, so we don't have to do that again.
Absolutely, Ismail. Let's switch gears. Great use of that phrase, by the way, and jump into a new strategy. A new speaking practice strategy. Here's an idea. Let's do a role play scenario where you take on the role of a museum curator who's just received this legendary shipwreck treasure. I'll play the role of a curious journalist asking you questions about how you plan to display it and preserve it. This will let you practice explaining and defending your ideas in a natural conversational flow. This kind of role play is a fantastic way to practice speaking because it pushes you to use new vocabulary, structure your thoughts, and respond on the spot, just like in real life conversations. Let's get started.
Thank you very much, teacher. Let's get started. So I'll play the role of the museum curator and you can start our conversation, teacher.
Absolutely. Let's dive in. Journalist me. So, Mr. Curator, it's incredible that your museum now holds such a legendary shipwreck treasure. Could you tell us how you plan to display these artifacts so that visitors from all over the world can appreciate them? Now
Yeah,
go.
you know, I'm very delighted and happy because this museum it will host these beautiful treasures that they were really a holy grail of the human history. And you know, teacher, I don't know the reviews here. They were the holy grail of the human history to mean that we have been searching for them. It's have been a long time, and I think for all the nations and think for all the countries to get advantages from this from this. From this from this treasure that we have found in this shipwreck, we're gonna set a virtual museum that will enable people from abroad to get into our museum virtually using a VR, and they will be able to have the same experience that a person who visits our museum might have. So like that, we will make sure, we'll guarantee that everyone will see this appealing and attractive treasure that is very old. And also, our museum has a tight security. There is a lot of there is so many cameras and security officers that will make sure that this treasure will never be stolen.
That's a fantastic answer, Ismail. You've done a wonderful job stepping into the curator's shoes. Let me polish your response just a little for even more clarity. I'd say, yes, I'm absolutely delighted that our museum is hosting these treasures. Truly the holy grail of maritime history, and you use that phrase perfectly. It's exactly what you'd call something people have sought for centuries. To make sure everyone can enjoy this legendary find, we're setting up a virtual museum experience. People from all over the world will be able to visit us through VR and have the same immersive experience as someone physically here. This way, we share this treasure with all nations equally. And of course, we have top-notch security. A tight security system with cameras and guards to ensure the artifacts are never stolen and are preserved for generations to come. You did a fantastic job with that, and your idea was spot on. Keep it up, and let me know whenever you want to switch gears again.
Thank you very much, teacher. So let's keep the conversation going, teacher. This real life scenario is really interesting. So provide me with more questions as a journalist, and I'll keep playing the role of a curator.
Absolutely. Let's keep the momentum going. Journalist me. That sounds like an incredible plan. Now, as a curator, could you tell us a bit more about the challenges you foresee in preserving these artifacts? For example, how will you handle the delicate process of restoring items that have been underwater for centuries while still keeping their historical authenticity?
Yeah, your question is really interesting. As you know, if you keep something under salt water for, like if you keep something immersed in salt water for a long time, it is inevitable that it will be rusted. So the challenge that we'll be facing is to remove the rusting from this treasure while keeping it in a good shape.
Absolutely, you're spot on. You've explained that challenge really well. Let me polish your response just a bit for even more fluency. Yes, that's a great question. As you know, when something has been submerged in salt water for a very long time, corrosion is inevitable. Our main challenge is to carefully remove that rust and stabilize each artifact so it stays in good condition. We'll use special conservation techniques to preserve the authenticity of each piece while making sure it's stable and can be displayed beautifully for visitors. You did a fantastic job explaining that. It's all about balancing preservation and authenticity. Let's keep going.
Okay, so I think teacher we
I'm sorry, but you've hit the daily limit for advanced.
okay, so now teacher, let's I'm going to jump or switch the gear
Hey there,
into.
great as the let's keep the sounds great, Ismail. I'm always here whenever you want to dive into another activity or explore a new topic. Just let me know what you'd like to do next, and we'll
Thank
keep
you
the.
very much, teacher. Now I'll provide you with another screenshot of the podcast as I listen to them. And then you can pick or choose a random podcast that will enable me to I'll listen to it, and then I come back to you. But I think, teacher, it will be much more better now to tackle some Anki words. So what do you think, teacher?
That sounds like a fantastic plan. We can definitely dive into some Anki words and reinforce your vocabulary. Whenever you're ready, just share the words you want to focus on, and we'll craft some engaging practice around them. And of course, feel free to send over that podcast screenshot whenever you'd like, and we'll keep it all balanced. Let's keep it.
Okay, my friends, now let's review the first word, which is at a nutshell. Okay, so now, teacher, we're gonna review the first word, which is nutshell. The meaning, teacher, of a nutshell is we use
Hey
this word.
there, how's it
We
going?
use please, teacher, when I'm talking, I don't want from you to drop me or to interrupt me. So listen to me carefully. I'll provide you with the meaning of the word nutshell, and I also incorporate it into some sentences to increase my retention of this word. So, teacher, from now ago, I will try to talk smoothly because that it will help me to practice meditation and to spot. I don't know, teacher, what I either whether I have used here the word meditation, but what I really mean by it is it will enable me to spot the filler words that I use overly and also spot or identify the words that I use overly or exaggerately so I can search for their meanings.
Got it, Ismail. I'll make sure to listen carefully and let you speak uninterrupted. I appreciate your dedication to practicing smoothly and spotting those filler words. Whenever you're ready, go ahead and share the meaning of nutshell and use it in a sentence. I'm here to help and support you along the way.
Thank you very much, teacher. I appreciate your help. So, at a nutshell, we use it when we would like to provide a brief or a concise explanation to a person. For example, we can say, let's imagine that a person he is curious about how muscles are built. So I will tell him at a nutshell when we go to at a nutshell, here is how muscles are built. We go to the gym, we destroy the fibers of this muscles, and then we come back, we eat some protein that help to build this muscle. So here, teacher, I have shared with my friend who is curious about how muscles are built, and like that I will satisfy his curiosity. And you know, teacher, I have just extracted this word satisfy satisfy the curiosity, which means when we search about something that we have been curious about it and we find a good answer, that answers really satisfy our curiosity. So what do you think, teacher, about my use of the word at a nutshell? And let's have a back and forth conversation, and we're gonna prompt me to use the word naturally.
You did a great job using it in a nutshell, and your explanation was clear and accurate. You effectively demonstrated how it's used to give a concise summary. I also love how you connected it to satisfying curiosity, which is a nice touch. Let's keep the conversation going for our next prompt. Imagine you're explaining a complex topic like cloud engineering to a beginner. I'll ask you to sum it up in a nutshell, and you can practice using that phrase again. Let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready, teacher. Let's go.
Awesome. Let's dive in. So, all right, Mr. Curator, let's switch gears a bit. Could you explain the concept of cloud engineering in a nutshell for someone who's completely new to it? How would you summarize it briefly? Now, it's your turn to step into the role and give us that concise explanation.
Okay, so teacher, I will, here is my response. I will incorporate at a nutshell into it. So at nutshell, cloud engineering, it consists of renting some servers from huge and powerful companies because it is very hard for companies who have just started to have their own data centers, and especially these data centers, they will not be able to much like if this company succeed dramatically, uh, its servers, they will not be able to match the need of users. But with cloud engineering, if you rent servers from other companies as AWS, these companies, they will provide you with servers that will match and fit the number of visitors that you get every day. And another thing that these cloud platforms provide to its clients or to its companies is like you don't care about maintenance or the cooling of these servers and things like that. All you care about it is that these servers, they must be scalable and they must always be available to your users. And back in the days, having data centers in within a company, it was very an overwhelming things for owners of companies because they were considered a huge investment. And with the cloud companies, they have spare that. I don't know to trader views here. Spare that to mean they have enabled companies to think about other things that are much more vital other than servers. They were considered a problem for them. So, teacher, I think I haven't expressed that at natural because I have digged into the deep details of how cloud really works.
That was a fantastic effort. You definitely covered a lot of important details about cloud engineering, and your explanation was really clear. To fine tune it, the phrase in a nutshell is usually used to summarize the main points briefly without diving into too many details. So next time, you can focus on just the core idea, and then you can expand afterward if needed. Overall, you did great, and it's clear you have a solid understanding. Let's keep practicing, and you'll get even more comfortable with these summaries.
Okay, so now, my friends, let's jump into another word, which is tongue in check. I will start another conversation to practice this word with my teacher because, my friends, we should not review words just passively by reading their sentences, but it will be much more better to incorporate these words or to weave in this word into conversation that will contribute to memorizing this word. So let's do that. Okay, now, dear teacher, let's move into another expression, idiomatic expression, which is tongue in check. I'll provide you with the meaning of this word with some sentences. Then we can move into an opposing debate that through it I would like from you to encourage me to use the word naturally. So tongue in check, I think it is the meaning of this word is when a person says something sarcastically while trying to seem serious about it. For example, I can say that let's imagine that I went into the grocery store and I have asked them about the price of the egg. They told me that the price is 5 dirhams for the egg. And he will tell me that tongue in cheek because this price it is very expensive for one egg here in my country, and they might do that seriously. So what do you think, teacher, about my understanding of tongue in cheek?
You've got the right idea. Your explanation of tongue in cheek is spot on. It's when someone says something in a humorous or ironic way, not meant to be taken seriously. Um, your example about the grocery store is great for illustrating the concept. Overall, you did well in explaining it. If you'd like, we can definitely move into an opposing debate, and I'll help you incorporate tongue in cheek naturally in our conversation. Just
But
let me
before,
know.
teacher, we dive into this conversation, we engage into this opposing debate, I would like to thank you for correcting my spelling of this word because I was pronounced it, not spelling, but my pronunciation of this word because I was pronounced it as tongue in cheek, while it is tongue in cheek. Thank you very much, teacher.
You're very welcome, Ismail. It's great to see you paying attention to those details, and I'm always happy to help with pronunciation and spelling. Whenever you're ready, we can dive into that debate, and I'll make sure to guide you through using the expression naturally.
Okay, so let's start, teacher.
Absolutely. Let's get started. How about we pick a fun, light-hearted topic for our debate? For example, we could discuss something like, is it better to have a pet or not? And we can incorporate the expression tongue in cheek as we go along. You can take one side and I'll take the other, and we'll have some fun with it. Sound good?
Teacher, that's really sound great, but I think it will be very hard for me to incorporate the word tongue in cheek to talk about this topic, which is either it is great to have a pet in our house, but I will try now to craft a sentence related to the topic you provided to me to use the word tongue in cheek. For example, let's imagine that a friend told me that it is good to have uh, a pet in your house. So we'll tell him that having a cat it will ruin your life, and they will tell him that tongue in cheek. So what do you think, teacher? Please, teacher, I'm waiting now for your response. Okay, so teacher, here is how I would use tongue in cheek in
Hey there, let's dive in. What topic should we tackle first?
okay, teacher, I would like from you actually to provide me with another opposing debate that will encourage me to use the word tongue in cheek naturally.
Of course. Let's pick a fun and engaging topic. How about a debate on whether pineapple belongs on pizza? You can argue for or against it, and we can weave in some tongue-in-cheek humor as we go. This way, we'll have a playful and lively conversation, and you'll get to practice using the expression naturally.
Please, teacher, can you repeat this opposing debate because I haven't got it very well?
Of course. How about we have a fun debate on whether pineapple belongs on pizza or not? You can take one side of the argument, and I'll take the opposite side. Along the way, we can spring.
Teacher, I don't find this opposing debate really interesting, so provide me with another one.
No worries at all. Let's try something different. How about a debate on whether technology is making our lives better or worse? You can argue that it's improving our lives, and I can take the side that it's causing more harm than good. This way we can still have a lively discussion and naturally incorporate some humor. Let me know if that sounds good to you.
Okay, so I can say, teacher, that technology had really made our life much more easier, but unfortunately, technology had made some people much more softer because they have started to rely excessively on it to tackle other tasks, and I will say that tongue in cheek. So, teacher, did you get what I have shared with you? Said or done jokingly, ironically, or not meant to be taken seriously, suggests playful sarcasm or humor disguised as seriousness. Ironic, sarcastic, playful, mocking humor, serious, sincere, genuine. Tongue-in-cheek remark, tongue-in-cheek tone, tongue-in-cheek humor, tongue-in-cheek response. He said it tongue-in-cheek, she spoke tongue-in-cheek. Idiomatic phrases originally from the gesture of pressing the tongue into one's cheek to suppress laughter. Imagine someone pressing their tongue inside their cheek, trying not to laugh after saying something sarcastic. His apology was clearly tongue-in-cheek. The report's title was tongue-in-cheek, poking fun at bureaucracy. She made a tongue-in-cheek comment that offended some people. They had used the tongue-in-cheek style to make customers smile. His speech was full of tongue-in-cheek jokes. The writer's tone was tongue-in-cheek throughout the novel. The ambassador's tongue-in-cheek remark lightened the tense discussion. "Oh, relax, I was being tongue-in-cheek." Was his statement serious or just tongue-in-cheek? His earlier joke was tongue-in-cheek, but his warning was genuine.
Hey
So now,
there.
teacher, let's move into another word, which is off base. I think that the meaning of the word off base, which is to do something mistakenly. For example, let's imagine that a friend he asked me to troubleshoot he asked me about either I'm good at troubleshooting laptops problems, and I told him boastfully yes. I responded boastfully yes. I don't know, teacher, either of you here the word boastfully to mean with high confidence. I responded with yes, but I was really off base because I felt very stuck and I wasn't able to troubleshoot this problem. So what do you think, teacher, about my use of the word off base here in that context?
I think you did a great job of capturing the essence of the word off base. You used it well to convey that feeling of being a bit out of touch or not accurate in your response. It's a great way to express that you weren't completely confident or accurate in that situation. Overall, it's a solid use of the word. If you want, we can explore more examples or even try it in different contexts as well.
Yeah, teacher, I really would like to have a back and forth natural conversation in where I would like from you to provide me with in where I would like from you to prompt me to use the word off base. So assign me a character, let's dive or engage into this conversation.
Absolutely. Let's dive into a scenario. How about you take on the role of a project manager who's presenting a new software solution to your team? I'll play the role of a team member who's a bit skeptical and might point out if something's off base. We can then have a fun and interactive conversation where you get to use the word naturally in context. Sound good?
Sound good, teacher, so let's start our conversation.
Perfect. Let's jump right in. Project manager, you're presenting a new software tool that you believe will streamline your team's workflow. Team member, I'll be a bit skeptical and might gently point out if something doesn't quite add up. Whenever you're ready, go ahead and start with your presentation, and I'll jump in with my questions and comments.
Okay, so you want me, teacher, to deliver a presentation, and then one of the one of the audience, he will provide me with some rude or awkward comments that I am off base. So is that what you are intending from this real life scenario?
Exactly. You'll take the lead as the presenter, and I'll jump in as a team member who might have some challenging or off base comments to keep things interesting. This way, you'll get to practice responding and naturally using the word off base in your replies. Let's make it as interactive and fun as possible.